All right, welcome everybody. This webinar is on how to quality control your food service Revit model using our new Project Checker tool. So the first step we want to do is we want to make sure you're on the latest version and go into settings and go down to the new Project Checker tab. And so the first thing you need to do is set up your view templates. I already have a couple set up in here. These view templates are going to be used by the Project Checker tool to actually bring up the views that get checked, the floor plan views that get checked. And so we have separate view templates in here because this tool does add generic annotations, and this way you can kind of create your own quality control views that can get symbols tagged in them. And so below here, these are all the different checks that we're going to check for with the tool. You can see I had this, enable that. You can disable the checks here. And I have just a few disabled for plumbing rough-ins because we're going to go over rough-ins and electrical, and then we'll do connection points in plumbing. And there'll be a special conditions category when we get some checks together for it. But these are the 4 disciplines in here right now: equipment, electrical, plumbing, mechanical. And so once you have your view set up, you're ready to use the tool. It always helps to have MEP devices specified because we're going to be checking for some of these things. Same for electrical, plumbing, mechanical, annotation tags, and make sure your project mark value. We'll check for that too. Okay, so let's save and let's go open the Project Checker. So I have this 3D view open, and so the Project Checker always has to have a floor plan view open. So it's going to open up the equipment plan. It's looking at all the views from the equipment plan view template, so it's just opening up the first one. We're going to switch over to level 1 though. So once the tool launches, it actually does all its checks in the background. So you can see it was just loading there, and then up here, this carousel, you can click the bottom to scroll, and then you can see the little pointer finger when you actually hover over the view. And so this is for, we can change our floor plan view that we're going to check in here. And you'll see that the best way to use this is to, equipment plan 1. The best way to use this tool is to actually check your equipment plan with your equipment checks, plumbing plan with your plumbing checks, electrical with your electrical checks. So it's nice to have the carousel. You can just switch back and forth between your different floor plan views to run your different checks on your different views. The Project Checker is view specific, so it's checking the view. So when we do equipment plan, it's checking everything that's within that crop box, really. And so if you have an overall plan, you can do that to check the whole plan at once, or you can do smaller individual kind of areas of a plan if you just want to check certain areas. I mean, it'll certainly tool run faster the smaller the area, but this file has about 150 families in it, so it's pretty good. The tool also, it's independent from Revit, so you could put the tool over on another monitor, and then you could still actually come in here and do anything you need to do it. It's completely independent, so it doesn't actually prevent you from doing any commands in Revit, add, delete. And so that allows you to actually fix some of the issues and then use a reload button to reload them. And so once the tool's active here, you can actually, it already collected all the issues for this view, and all we have to do is just click our categories to get them to show up. And so I just click the equipment category or discipline, and it turns on all the individual checks, but I could also turn on each of these little categories by themselves. And so you can kind of see here, it's as we turn these issues or checks on, it's actually placing these symbols in our plan. And so these big circles here are hand sync radiuses. And so down here at the bottom, you can see it says verify hand syncs, and it's looking for families with hand sync descriptions. And these radiuses, pull this off, these radiuses are 25 feet radiuses around each hand sync. So it's just giving an overall check of your whole project to let you see if you have hand sync coverage for anywhere in your kitchen. So that's one of the checks. Equipment doesn't fit through 36-inch door. Tags missing. Equipment has nested families with connectors. So this is actually checking for nested families that also have connectors. And so this is just an issue. It kind of has a bug that causes tags to get thrown off to the kind of outsides of your family and not actually tagging the family. What else? Some mark value missing. So and a lot of equipment doesn't fit through 36-inch door. And so some things you can do in here. You can sort your checks just differently. So we could sort by category instead of by discipline. So now instead of equipment, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, and special conditions being our headers, it flips to actually just allow you to check all your different item numbers or all your different tags, placement, and so forth. Another thing we can do is actually group our issues differently. So this is by mark, where each mark has all its issues underneath of it. I don't see any that have more than one here, but and you can also change this up and actually group it by discipline. So if you have different, if you have an overall plan with more than one discipline showing, you can have different checks and you can actually group it differently. And then we can also group by category, which is same thing, but now we're just grouping by the individual categories that we see here. So rough-ins, connection points, just to separate the issues out. And so most importantly, I think you can click the item number column to sort by item number to actually give you item numbers from 1 to so forth in a list. And so now you can do that and keep all your grouping the same way you would like. So let's also, so the next thing is you can right click each issue for the menu, and you can also double click each of your issues to zoom into them in Revit. And so this will be on another screen. You can double click and you can actually see this equipment tag that's missing. It's on it's probably on one of these wall shelves maybe. Yeah, wall mount over shelves. And so that's the same thing. If you right click and click zoom in, it's the same thing. It'll zoom into the issue. Again, double clicking. You can quickly open up settings. So this will just open up the project checker tab in settings. If you want to see some of your checks or just disable more than one check at a time, you can just disable a bunch in here and save, and then return and reload and it'll recheck. You can disable a check right from here. So if I wanted to say disable this nested connector, we can click disable check, and this will disable it over in settings. So this will never get checked again each time I open the project checker. Or we can hide all issues of this check. And so what that does, that actually just hides this check and all checks from the same one. So all nested families with connectors checks for the duration of this session. So if we were to close the project checker and reopen it, those checks would, or those issues would appear again. But this would allow you to not have to disable it if you just want to actually go through the list and go through everything, and maybe you already reviewed the equipment that doesn't fit through the door, 36-inch door, and so you can just turn that off for this session, but make sure you don't disable it forever. So that's what hide all issues does. And so right now you saw I just disabled the nested families with connectors check. So let's go over to our rough-in. So we'll go over to our electrical. See the little pointer and click. And right now it's checking our electrical plan. Alright, so we want to switch over to the electrical or turn the electrical checks on. And we'll turn our equipment checks off. Alright, so let's see what we got. So we're gonna get a lot of electrical connection point missing, or electrical connection point tag missing. And that's because I'm really just checking for rough-ins. It's just a rough-in finished plan. The next one we check will be a connection point finished plan, so that's going to be the reverse here. But since we're checking for rough-ins, we really want to just turn these off, and so we'll disable them, and then that way we can actually just see our rough-in issues. And so this is something, once you disable these things in settings, once you save settings, it'll save to your Revit project. So you can usually probably first time you do this, kind of set it up the way you're going to work, and just save your settings, and then that way you never have to do this again. But there's also some checks that are issues that might pop up that you may realize you just want to disable. So. And we're actually going to disable the connection point check also. And this should just give us a clear look at the actual issues with our rough-in. So I see one here, this food shield. It's missing a rough-in for volts. So we'll have to check that. All right, so we hit all of our we've hid all of our connection point issues, and now we're just seeing our rough-in issues. And we have quite a few. A bunch of rough-ins are missing: food shield, drop-in hot well, food shield, bunch of drop-in hot wells and food shields. And then here we have a rough-in that's more than 72 inches from a walk-in. That's actually probably not an issue, just because the walk-in is probably so big that it's just not picking it up. And then again, here's some missing heat lamps. And then this is an interesting one here. We have an Antle pool station that doesn't have a tag, but also it's more than 20 feet from an exhausted. So let's double click that. So here's this is the pool station, and the way this check works is this pool station has a mark value that matches the hood that it goes with. So here's the hood. And so this has mark value 30, and this does too, and this is why it's saying this is too far. This is farther than 20 feet, so it's saying that the fire pool is more than 20 feet from that exhaust hood. So that's a very helpful check for a fire code. All these rough-ins that are missing, let's double click those, and I actually know what they are. They're all the drop-ins and food shields on these counters, and the reason for that is this project had sub-panels, so these counters had single-point connections, and all of the electricity came from one point over here, and so they actually don't get rough-ins because there's this single-point connection. And so the walk-in we kind of went through, so that's electrical. Now let's go over and check plumbing. So turn on our plumbing checks, go over to our plumbing plan, and load. And so I mentioned this earlier, I actually turned off the plumbing rough-in checks in settings. I just disabled them because this plumbing plan I actually placed connection points with the KitchDesigner tools. And so instead, we're going to see how this would look if you actually use connection points. All right, so we got a fair amount of tags missing. Oh, it looks like the floor sinks aren't tagged, or the floor drains. And then we actually have a bunch of indirect waste has indirect waste and is farther than 60 inches from the closest floor sink. And so what this is saying is we don't have a floor sink next to these pieces of equipment that have indirect waste. And so this is a steamer, and it looks like this floor sink is probably a bit too far from that. Let's see another one. Milk coolers. So I actually replaced these floor sinks and didn't realize that these milk coolers do have indirect waste. I'm sure maybe they have condensate pans, but that would be something that I wouldn't have noticed, that the floor sinks for these three milk coolers. And then this 3-compartment sink, this is actually one that I knew I didn't place, and so this is just saying it's too far away from this floor sink too. And so there's actually none of the connection points were missing, but we can kind of simulate that, and I actually want to simulate one other thing too. So I'm just going to remove some connection points, and then I also wanted to simulate what would happen if we have duplicate spare numbers. So just made some changes, and then we can come down here and press the reload issues button. While it's doing that, there's two other buttons down here. This one looks like a little mountain that exports a JPEG image of the actual floor plan view with the issues on it. And so that's actually just meant for a simple reference, and really it kind of goes along with our Excel export. So the Excel export exports to Microsoft Excel, and it gives you a list of all the issues, how they're grouped in here and sorted in here. And then it also puts this image at the top, so you can kind of have a little key. And so I just reloaded. You can see now here it's saying we're missing some connection points. So for the ice storage bin, it's saying that's missing connection point. Looks like I'm missing some for the ice maker, the filter, and it looks like that's it. And so let's go back and check the equipment plan. I did add some spare numbers that were duplicates of some other pieces of equipment. And so if we look at this, you can see this actual specific check. It's the only one right now, but we're going to do some more. But it says when a piece of equipment has the same number as the spare number, it gives us the option over here to actually fix this issue. And so by clicking that, it's going to actually delete the spare number that was overlapping on another piece of equipment. And so we just added this this recently, and so we're going to be adding more fixes, little wrenches to each of our different issues so that we can quickly add tags and add other things just from the screen. And so that's it for the project checker. I will sit here and watch this finish up and delete the spare number. But if you guys have any questions, please let's ask them now. And thank you guys for all coming. All right, so it looks like we're not going to get any questions, but thank you guys for coming, and talk to you guys next time. See ya.